Good evening from the campus of California State University, Fresno. This is our program, Careers in Forensic Accounting, hosted by CalCPA and the accounting department here at Fresno State University. Let me introduce myself. My name is David Lowe. I am the Senior Strategic Relations Manager here at CalCPA. And with me tonight is our Strategic Relations Manager, Jacqueline Quinn Piper, who will be monitoring our panel here. My personal thanks to Dr. Lin here for helping us to host this event here on the campus, and we're very excited to have our live audience here, and those of you joining us online. Thank you very much for participating, and also to our panelists, thank you for showing up tonight. Let me begin before we get started and tell you a little bit about CalCPA. We are the professional association for certified public accounts, CPAs, here in the state of California. We currently have over 42,000 members statewide. The panelists here are all CalCPA members, and for students, what this means is you have a tremendous network of professionals that you can tap into. So I invite all of you here watching live and also here watching us on the webcast to join CalCPA. Student membership is free. So if you go to calcpa.org/join free, all one word, calcpa.org/join free, you'll go ahead and sign up. You can literally sign up on your phone. It takes, 35 seconds to join, so you'll be able to get a lot of our content, webcasts like this. You'll be eligible for scholarships and also participate in our programs, which we bring to you free of charge as students. So we want to be a resource for you as you enter the accounting profession, so I encourage you to join and have a stake in your profession. So that being said, I'm going to go ahead and introduce Dr. Shu Lin from the California State University Fresno Accounting Department for some remarks. So, Dr. Lin.
Thank you, David. Good evening, everyone. Thank you for attending this event and here or online. It's not easy to put together an event like this one, so I would like to thank Ms. Jacqueline Quinn Piper, Mr. David Lowe, as well as the technical support team, Mr. Chavez Lametre, and Mr. Jeff Solano, for their assistance in coordinating and supporting this event. It's a great pleasure for me, on behalf of the Department of Accountancy, to welcome and thank the CalCPA Fresno chapter for hosting this event about forensic accounting here at Craig School of Business. I want to thank our guest speakers here tonight. This is going to be a very informative evening. I'm excited and looking forward to hearing more about forensic accounting. We do currently offer a forensic accounting course as an upper division accounting elective course. Professor Alan Kay has been doing a wonderful job teaching that course. So I expect tonight's event will definitely generate more interest in forensic accounting and may persuade you to choose or pursue forensic accounting as your career path. So I'm thinking maybe we need to offer more sections of forensic accounting in the future. Now, every year we graduate about 150 accounting majors. We are very proud of our high-quality, hardworking, diligent accounting students. And we also very appreciate the opportunities our employers provide to our students. So I would like to take this opportunity to thank our employers and also let them know we have recently started an accounting certificate program. This program allows our accounting major students who sign up for the program to delay their graduation until they have earned 150 units for the CPA licensure requirements. Meanwhile, they will be allowed to sit for the CPA exam once they have completed their degree requirements. So I'm waiting to see who's going to be the first one in our school to pass the CPA exam prior to his or her graduation. So finally, hereby, I want to encourage our students to seriously consider, joining CalCPA if you are not, already a member of the CalCPA. So David already say their student membership is free. This will start your journey of transitioning from a student to a professional. So thank you all for your support. I hope you will enjoy the evening. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Lin. So we'll get to our main event, which is our panel discussion, and because that's why you're all here. So let me go ahead and bring up our Strategic Relations Manager, Jacqueline Quinn Piper, who will be leading that section.
Hi, everyone. Thanks so much for coming. So I have two mics on, so maybe it's not normal for me unless something a little awkward happens, so this means we're on track. So thanks to our panelists for coming. We appreciate you taking the time to come and speak with our students. And as David mentioned, I'm the Strategic Relations Manager at CalCPA. I'm new to the department. I've been with CalCPA for about 4 years. It's been about 6 months that I've been working with David, so I've been learning a lot from him, and it's been great working with students. And as he mentioned, we have students that are watching on the internet, on the webs, that's great. Okay, so we have viewing parties that are actually taking place on other campuses, and so there's many students that are watching. I believe we have about 130 that are registered, and there's more along with that. And I want to take this time to thank our campus ambassadors that are hosting these parties. You guys are amazing. And our campus ambassador here, Epifania, we appreciate the work that she's doing. So with that, we'll go ahead and get started, and I'll let our panelists go ahead and introduce themselves and the work that you're doing and where you're at right now.
Okay. Hello, everyone. My name is Jodi Rowley, and I work for a firm called Hemming Morse, and we have offices currently in Fresno, San Francisco, Los Angeles, Chico, and Santa Rosa, so all across California. I have been doing forensic accounting for about 15 years now, and I didn't start out doing that. I sort of fell into this, so it's been an interesting transition. A little bit about my background. I went to UC Santa Barbara and graduated with a political science degree because I wanted to go to law school. And then when I graduated, I thought, maybe I don't want to go to law school. So I went to UCLA Extension at night and took accounting classes so I could sit for the CPA exam. And throughout my career, I have worked in big firms, small firms, private industry, public accounting. I've done tax, audit, and now I'm doing forensic accounting. So a little bit all over the board. So that is my background. Ray?
My name is Ray Medrano, and I work for a firm called Roser Accountancy Corporation. And we are a small group of people, about 7 of us in total. And I kind of specialize and head up the business valuation department there. So my background a little bit, it was about 5 years ago that I sat where you guys sit. And I was trying to decide what I wanted to do, and I wasn't really sure what area of accounting was right for me. In fact, throughout my entire career at Fresno State, I thought I was going to be a managerial accountant because I love manufacturing. I love to see how things come together and how concepts become very real, tangible things and solve real problems, right? So that was always my interest. And I took the forensic accounting class here, and it was okay. I liked it, had some great stories off of it, and it was fun. More than anything else, it was fun. But I never really connected myself as that was the direction for a career. So 5 years ago, I'm sitting in this auditorium listening to a panel of people talk about what they do. And one of the guys was a forensic accountant. Well, afterwards, I just really enjoyed him. I loved the way he talked. His personality made me feel relaxed. He was a lot of fun. So I went up to him at the end and I said, I'm not going to be one of the people that asks you for a job. I just want you to mentor me. Can you do that? And he was kind of stunned and he didn't quite know what to do with me. Yeah, you can imagine. And so that one thing led to another, and I ended up working for him part-time while I studied for the CPA exam. After passing half the exam, he kind of looked at me and said, I'm sick of you working for me part-time. I want you full-time, and I will teach you everything I know about forensic accounting. And I got super excited. I said, let's do this. So he sat me down and he said, Ray, here's your first case. suppose a man owns 3 Taco Bell franchises. What is the value of that company? And I said, well, I don't know. What's it listed for? What can you sell it for? He's like, that's not what I asked you. What is the value? And I looked at him and I said, I have no idea how to approach this problem. I don't know. I don't have the goods. I can't give you an answer. I don't know what to say right now. What's the right answer? And he said, that's the right answer. You don't know, you're unsure, and that's why you're here. Get a notepad, and we're going to go through this together. And it was that person that kind of vested in me that kind of spurred me on towards doing all the different elements of forensic accounting I've been a part of and to where I am now.
Good evening. My name is Elaine Rowley. I don't know if this team is working. Better? Okay. I kind of started off like Jodi. I didn't even know if I wanted to be an accountant. I actually thought I wanted to be a chef in the beginning, or a lawyer. Kind of opposite ends of the spectrum there. But as a child, I always knew when I drove into a big city that I wanted to do something in business. So I'm kind of a homegrown girl. I grew up in a very, very small town about 45 minutes south of here. And I decided I wanted to go to New York right out of high school, and I wasn't going to stick around. Well, that didn't last very long. So when I came back, I started taking night classes when I was there, worked for a family business, and then decided I wanted to come back home. So came back home, and it was much different than being in New York. And went to COS for 2 years and decided I definitely wanted to stay local. Got my degree here at Fresno State, and then went to work for the accounting firm M. Green & Company, where my parents got their tax returns done. So I knew it was a good firm. I just knew it was important to me to go to work for some place that I trusted and that I would never be asked to cross that line or do anything that I didn't feel was ethical. So knowing the firm's reputation, I went there. I actually started there a month before I graduated, sat for the exam a month before I graduated, and I've been there ever since. So made partner in 2013, and then the whole forensic thing kind of just fell in my lap. I had a coworker who went and got her CFE, and I thought it was really cool, all the stuff she was getting to do. So she kind of took me under her wing, and then she left. And so I was there by myself now to do all of this, and so I started going to the fraud conferences and started participating, and then I joined CalCPA, went up through the chairs, which is where I met Jodi, and then kind of just networked and made some connections, and then started getting cases, and still called her all the time for help, and just learned how to do it. So that's me.
Great, thank you. What drew you specifically to forensic accounting? What made it stand out for you as opposed to other fields of accounting?
Well, for me, it kind of just fell in my lap. Like I said, I went to college in Santa Barbara, and then I lived in Los Angeles and Arizona and was working at a CPA firm there and just doing traditional tax and audit. And then my husband and I decided to move here to Fresno, and I was looking for a job. So back then, that's when people were posting jobs in the newspaper. So I was answering a bunch of ads. And I thought, I might want to do something different. So I interviewed with a traditional firm to do taxes. I also interviewed with Valley Children's Hospital. And then I answered this random ad for Hemming Morris. And I went and met with the partner at the time, and I had no idea what forensic accounting was, because when I was in college a long time ago, we did not have those courses. So I didn't know anything about it. And when he was explaining it to me, it sort of captured my interest in that I had wanted to go to law school in the very beginning. So I know they work with a lot of attorneys and do a lot of, work for the district attorneys sometimes. And I thought, well, that might be kind of interesting. So on a total whim, I took the job, and I've been there ever since. So that's what happened.
For me, it was more about a challenge, I think. I still remember this. My professor for the forensic accounting course here actually said, if you're going to take my class, I recommend you take all your auditing and all your tax classes first before sitting in my class. And of course, I thought, well, I don't need any of that. I'll do fine. And I did. I got A. But what I didn't understand at the time was that forensic accounting really challenges you on all these different areas, right? So the more audit I have and the understanding of audits and how things should look and how what proper financial statements look like, and tax and the ramifications of doing things a certain way, and how tax returns can vary in value, and result depending on management decisions and what the tax accountant decides to do. And industry, how things look and how the accountants kind of pull it together and how they prepare their reports and forecasting. The more I understood about these areas, the better of a forensic accountant I am, and that's what I thrive on. It's the challenge for me of, well, you don't know, but I can go home and read, and I can go home and study, and I can put myself out there, and I can challenge myself to get better than what I am. And to me, that's what was so alluring, and that's what's kind of kept me here. I never really intended on being in public accounting as long as I have been. So.
No one ever does.
Actually, it was very near and dear to me. I had a friend who actually was got involved in a fraud scheme. And she lost over $150,000 in this, and it used up her retirement. And so it was kind of a personal thing for me, and I wanted to be there for those people that need the help, that may not have, because I think there's an emotional side as well that sometimes we overlook. We go in looking for numbers, and I think we kind of put aside sometimes the emotional distress that the clients or whomever are going through when someone, a long-term employee that they've treated like family, has allegedly stolen from them, and it's a very emotional thing for them. And for me, I think it's more that side for me, just being there to help them and having someone that they can say, will you help me? Yes, I will, and that side of it. So.
What specialty are you in, and how did you know which area was right for you?
Well, I wouldn't say that I have a set specialty. I probably work on all sorts of different cases, but I mostly do economic damages or fraud investigations. So economic damages cases would be, for example, if you own a small business and let's say your business burns to the ground, and then you file a claim with your insurance company, and the insurance company has to pay you for that claim, but you say, oh, I lost $1 million, my business burned down, I lost $1 million while I had to rebuild it. And the insurance company's looking at you thinking, I'm not sure you ever made $1 million. So a lot of times the insurance company will hire my firm to go in and look at the books and records historically and to determine whether this person really would have lost that amount of money before they're going to pay their claim or not. So that I do a lot of that type of work. Or I will do fraud investigations like Elaine was talking about, where there's embezzlement by a bookkeeper or maybe a family member. I do a lot of that type of work as well.
So for me, I seem to gravitate more towards business valuation, and it all depends on the circumstance involving the valuation. So I've done some valuations for divorce. I've done some valuations where people are trying to sell their company. I've done some valuations for people that are trying to buy a company. Within that buying and selling arena, it's called merger and acquisition. And the nice thing about that is I actually go one step further and I prepare teaser videos to bring in venture capitalists to actually buy these companies, as well as write position papers to kind of sell the company to people and potential buyers. So I do a lot of that stuff. I also value for IRS purposes, gift tax returns, or for SBA loans.
I try to stay away from divorce. I don't do any family law situations because no one ever seems to win in those. So my primary focus would be fraud, embezzlement, but it really depends on what time of the year it is. So January through April, it's taxes, and it's audit during the rest of the year, and then as these cases come up, I'll take the fraud and embezzlement cases, but that's what I stick to primarily.
What kind of engagements do you work on in your area?
Well, I work on the type of engagements that I talked about, like the businesses that, are business interruption losses or what those are called. Let's see, a lot of other things that I will work on are partnership disputes. And here in the Valley, I tend to get involved in a lot of family partnership disputes where you will have, Grandpa Joe, who owned this farm, has been farming for years, and he's leaving the farm to his two sons, and one son has been running the farm this whole time, and maybe the other son is a dentist, so he's not very involved. and Grandpa Joe dies, and the dentist now comes in and accuses his brother of mismanaging the funds. So we will go back decades sometimes and look to see if that's really what happened. Is he really getting cheated out of his portion of the inheritance of the farm? And as Elaine says, a lot of times those get very emotional because you have families that are just fighting over things that just seem somewhat ridiculous sometimes, but they're very vested in it. So we come in and look at the books and records and try to help them out as much as they can. So I do a lot of that here.
Majority of my engagements, people love me. So
Wow, okay then.
I don't really.
Wow,
It's,
all right.
it's kind of nice. So, I'm the guy that they're happy to see. As an auditor, they are kind of scared of auditors because auditors are looking for the dirt. The forensics are trying to uncover the fraud.
So apparently they do not love me, but they love Ray.
Everybody loves Raymond, anyway.
Okay.
So cheesy but true. So for me, they'll call me in and they're like, I would like to show you my business. And it begins with a journey. I get to sit down with the owners. Well, tell me about your business. What have you been involved in for the last 15, 20, 30 years? What does it look like for you? What first drew you to that? Well, tell me about it. How are revenues? What's your revenue stream like? Is it seasonal? Does it go up in certain seasons? Does it go down in certain seasons? Do you have a plan for the future? Do you just kind of live year to year? Do you pump money in when you need money? Do you have outside funding? And pretty much they teach me all about their kid, right? A business is very much like a kid to a business owner because they've been with it for so long, they've watched it grow, they've nurtured it, they loved it, and it's a part of them. And so it's a very precious thing to get a business owner and for them to share with me what they love about their business. And for me, I never get tired of that because I'm constantly learning something new. I don't think I have any specific field that I really have worked in and that I would consider is my, everything. I've worked with food service, I've worked with chemical refinery companies, I've worked in dentistry, pharmaceutical, construction, heavy construction, and manufacturing. So I'm kind of all over the board, but the fun thing for me is just asking those questions and getting to know the business.
Primarily, I've found myself kind of niched in medical office. There's a lot of embezzlement that goes on in doctors and dentist office. Usually it's long-term employees. It's a one office person, one manager person in the office. And so the physicians, the dentists, whomever, they are very busy doing their jobs. And so they don't always have good internal controls in place. So it's very easy for someone who's been there a long time to go in and just put something in front of them. They sign it. Little do they know, they've just signed an extra paycheck or they've paid the other person's cell phone bill. So yeah, I've done several engagements with physicians and then also PTO organizations, as sad as that is. I'm actually going to court on Monday to testify for a local PTO treasurer who embezzled about $50,000 and overdrew the bank account and caused the students to not be able to do any of the activities for the remainder of the year. So, and I'm actually writing a paper on internal controls to go into the PTO Digest magazine. So I think those are kind of near and dear to my heart. Anything that involves kids is important for me. I don't think, parents fundraise and these kids work really hard to earn this money and then to have someone come along and just use it for their own means, it's disturbing to me, so.
Interesting. That's a good segue. I'll skip around a little bit and go into the question of any unique or interesting situations that you've encountered or can think of at the moment.
Well, I worked on a case several years ago for the district attorney here in Fresno, and I don't know if anyone's heard of it, but it was the Genesis Group Homes case. Oh. Mm-hmm. Yeah, so there were group homes here in Fresno, and there was a woman who was in charge of all the group homes, and the allegation was that she was spending the state's money on personal expenses and not using it as it was supposed to be allocated for the children in these group homes. So we were hired by the district attorney's office to go and look at the books and records and investigate this. And some of the crazy things that we found, she absolutely was mishandling the funds and spending them incorrectly. But some of the stranger things that we encountered was we found receipts, grocery store receipts. And you would think if you're buying groceries for the kids in the group homes, you'd buy standard stuff, cereal, milk, hamburgers, hot dogs, that kind of stuff. We found receipts for steak, lobster, alcohol, and all of these receipts are being turned into the state for reimbursement. Again, if you're buying clothing for the kids, you would think maybe, Sears or JCPenney or Target, even places like that. And we found receipts for high-end designer label clothing. And the district attorney came and had a search warrant and searched this woman's house and office, and they found racks of designer clothes with the tags still on them and stuff like that. So it was an interesting case. And I think the most interesting thing about it, which I think Elaine can probably speak to this, that you find this in a lot of cases where people are committing fraud or embezzlement, they're almost proud of it in a way, or they think they can outsmart people. She had 2 sets of books. She had meticulous notebooks where she was keeping track of all of her misuse of funds. Oh, I bought, this designer suit at Macy's, and she tried to explain, well, I was keeping track of that, I was going to reimburse the state, but
I'm going to pay it back.
yeah, I'm going to pay it back, but that clearly was not going to happen. But I think in a lot of cases you find people who are keeping a separate set of records or some sort of ledger or something. They're just proud of it, I think. So we worked on that case I probably worked on that case for 5 years. It was a very, very interesting case.
So I got called by an investment banker, and he wanted to issue a loan. This business had come to him and basically said, we want to buy some real estate. Will you give us the money? And the banker kind of called me, and he's like, I have no idea what the guy does. Can you please figure it out for me and report back to me and tell me whether or not it's a legitimate business? And I take the guy in, and he was a young guy in his 20s, and he starts telling me that he's a video gamer. So he plays video games competitively. And I said, okay, well, tell me about that. How long have you been playing? He's like, oh, about 5 years or so. I really got serious within the last year, and I've made some money at it. And so, I really want to start investing this and kind of working it over and figuring out what to do with it. I said, okay, well, let's talk some numbers here. What are we talking here? What are we thinking? How much are you going to make? It's like, oh, about $200,000. I'm like, okay, $200,000. All right. Well, that's good. That's healthy. How much do you work? About 35 hours a week or so. Just kind of, streaming. People look at me and online, and that's about it. Okay, that's good. So do you want to keep doing that? Well, it's fine for now. And so I go into all these questions, right? And I say, okay, so $200,000 a year. That's pretty impressive. I think it's pretty good. He's like, oh, no. That's a month.
Oh, my.
For playing video games?
Yeah.
Wow.
At that point, I was reconsidering my CPA exam.
Exactly.
I'm reconsidering right now.
I was like, I spent how many months studying? Anyway, you didn't hear that. So it was one of those big moments in my life. I was like, wow, I can't believe this is a legit business. And I went back to the banker, and I'm like, well, I want to see all the bank statements for one. I want to substantiate this. Yeah. But if this is what it is, as long as it's consistent, and as long as he's willing to work and mature enough to continue this, I don't see this going away. So it was very, very interesting.
One of the physician cases I worked on was for a plastic surgeon. And she was very involved, like I said, running her business, but she wasn't taking care of her business. So she had an office manager, and like Jodi said, sometimes they're just very blatant about it. And it's almost like they want to get caught, almost like a catch me if you can kind of thing. Their clientele, and we went over this later, and she no longer takes cash, but they would come in for procedures, and they would literally hand the office staff $7,500 in cash. She would actually bypass, and when she knew someone was there to pay, she would tell the front staff, oh, I need to take them into my office and handle the paperwork. So she literally would bypass the front staff, take them into her private office, shut the door, and collect the money from the people. Give them a receipt, but then the money never went into the bank. She had a bag that she carried with her all the time that had all of the funds. So I think the first thing that tipped us off was when we went through the deposit slips, there were no cash deposits. Everything was a check. And then we found, obviously, then we started finding where she was paying her own cell phone bill. And when we went in to search the office, one of the more disturbing things was that she had stolen the doctor's prescription pad and wrote her daughter a prescription for the acne medication, the one that is heavily regulated by the Drug and Food Administration. So that was one of the big things that they were able to get her on. And then that was what we could find on the books. Off the books, we found out that she was ordering supplies and using a fake vendor name in QuickBooks, and then she was then taking those supplies to her family in Mexico who were performing black market surgeries.
Wow.
So yeah, so she ended up, so she ended up,
Interesting case.
yeah, so she ended up she pleaded out, didn't end up having to testify on that one, but she pleaded out and is paying a whole whopping $50 a month in restitution.
Crazy.
Wow.
Yes.
Those are all very interesting stories. Definitely more exciting than what I experienced in my job. So with that, what's a regular work day like for you?
Well,
Define regular.
yeah, exactly. Define regular. I mean, I think every workday for me is different. It depends on what type of case I'm working on. I mean, it could be as mundane as, like Elaine was saying, take a bunch of bank statements and you're just capturing them in Excel and you want to see what has happened to the books. So, I could have 5 years of bank statements and I'm just going to build a template or spreadsheet just to, so you can see the ebbs and flows of the funds in and out. So it could be as basic as that, or a lot of times I'll read deposition transcripts for witnesses in certain cases. The ultimate end of a case, a lot of times, like Elaine is going to do next week, it will be called to testify. So you could be preparing for your deposition or testimony. I mean, I don't think I could say there's any regular work day. It just depends on what type of case it is, which I think is part of what is the most interesting thing to me, is every single day is different. And I mean, maybe I'm going a little off topic here, but since I've done everything, audit, tax, everything, when you do taxes, one 1040 is like the next 1040. At least you have a template to go by. If you're doing an audit, you have an audit program, so at least you have someplace to start and you know how to approach each case. I think with what we do, every case is different. So when I get, or I meet with a client for a new case and find out about it, I really have to sit and think, okay, how am I going to approach this one? I don't have any template or set, defined set of work papers that I can use to approach it, which makes it pretty interesting. So I would say there's nothing typical about it.
Yeah, that's really well said. I mean, I agree with you.
Thank you. Thank you.
I really do agree with you. I mean, every day is different, and it all depends on what we're working on. I know some days it's like, I'm going to close my door and I'm going to be in my office for 8 hours because there are some templates I need to build or some worksheets I need to go over or some information I just really need to focus on. Other times I'm going to be out in the field with other people. I'm going to be visiting some business owners. I'm going to be talking with some people. I'm going to be visiting a banker. It all depends on what I'm working on. And so every day is different. Every day is exciting because you're never quite sure what's going to happen. And I like having that variation. And I like the little twists that happen. Oh, this is what I'm thinking about your business. Oh, you're doing something illegal. Okay. Thank you for telling me that now. Okay. Let me process this, and we'll get back in a day or two. So it's the twists and turns that I really love. So every day is really different.
Yeah, I don't think I can say anything different. Unfortunately, for my day to be interesting, something terrible has to be happening to someone else. That's the downside. Someone's getting money stolen from them, or losing a longtime employee or something. So I don't like that part of it. But I think I'm fortunate in the fact that I'm still very active. Being a partner, I still have a very active tax season, more active than what I really want. And I still have a lot of audits. So I think that in a lot of ways that helps me be sharp. And so when these cases do come along, you never know when someone's going to commit fraud or embezzlement. So it's not like you can predict them coming. So, but when they do, I kind of think it keeps me sharp. So I feel comfortable enough taking on those cases when they do come, having But I agree with Jodi. A fellow partner in my office is also a CFE, and she's a great auditor. I would give her any audit that comes along, but she wants it to look and be an audit file, and it's not. You have to think outside the box. And I always tell someone, she doesn't think enough like a crook to do this. Me, on the other hand, I'm always thinking of ways, okay, if I were going to commit and break the law right now, how would I do this? Because that's what they're doing, and you have to get in that mentality to be good at it. You have to think like they think, and that's what I try to do. I try to think, okay, if I were going to walk in here and steal from someone right now and get away with it, what would I do? Mm-hmm. And now when I go out to audit a client, that's what I ask my clients. Or I ask the employees there. If you wanted to steal from this company, what would you do? How would you do it? Because then I'm going to design an audit paper or an audit process to look for that exact thing. So I think in some areas it helps, but definitely no 2 days are ever the same. Ever, never, ever, never.
So there's a consensus that every day is different, and that's what makes this field so interesting and so unique. Aside from that, what else do you like best about your job and what you do?
Well, for me personally, I like working with attorneys and learning and being involved in the courtroom and that kind of stuff. Because again, I wanted to go to law school. I know I've said that a few times, but I keep saying one of these days I might do it when my kids are finally out of the house. We'll see. But so for me personally, I like the legal aspects of it as well as accounting. I took an accounting class in high school, so it's always been in the back of my mind that I was going to do something in accounting, even though I detoured a little during college. So for me, I like to have those two facets of my personality merge on a day-to-day basis. That's what I really enjoy. And again, every day is different. It's challenging. It's a very interesting field to be in.
Mm-hmm. Different and challenging for sure. I mean, that's really what attracted me to it. The fact that my understanding in tax, audit, and the other areas really helped me and pushed me forward in doing better at my job. So, I'm constantly reading and constantly trying to do better than what I did yesterday. And I'm constantly growing. And for me, I am a lifelong learner. I studied many different things before I actually settled on accounting. And, my friends, when I finally graduated from Fresno State here with an accounting degree, said, congratulations, we always thought you were just going to be a lifelong student. And truthfully, I am a lifelong student. Just I get paid for it now. So with every new case, with every new evaluation, with every new engagement that I get involved in, I become an expert in these different industries. And I understand business more and more and more. I understand what makes management work and what doesn't work in management. I understand how to increase the value of a company and the things to look for to basically decide whether or not the company can sustain its growth or it's going to flounder in a few years. And so all these things are really interesting to me. I am just a sponge. I love to learn from everybody. I know I've picked Jodi's brain a few times over the years. It's true. And she buys lunch, everybody. But it's just really great for me, and that's really what I love best, just the challenge of myself and the opportunity to grow and learn.
Well, you're asking me what I like best about my job 2 days after tax season is over, so that would be what I like best right now. You know what? I just love going to work every day. I had someone tell me one time, if you get a degree in accounting, you'll never be without a job. And I can't say that more than anything. I mean, you will never, ever, and you can go in anything. If I weren't married at the time and had children, I would have so went to work for the FBI. I mean, that actually is my passion. If I ever get a chance, I probably would. You can do anything, and so that's what I like best about it. I mean, every day is something different, and I can do anything I want to do, and so I love going to work every day and never knowing what's going to fall on my desk. You can have your day totally planned out, and then you get a phone call, and it changes just like that. So you just have to just go with the flow, but that's what I love.
Thanks. So we have many students that are here interested to learn about what this field is and are contemplated maybe getting into it. What would you recommend that a student do now that if this is the field that they want to get into, how should they go about it? What should they do to prepare for this?
Well, I think, I don't know if Ray or Elaine said it earlier, but I think an auditing background and a general accounting knowledge is the best preparation to do forensic accounting. So personally, I think to continue, get your accounting degree, sit for the CPA exam. That is absolutely the first thing I would do. And if you can, go to work for a traditional firm doing audit, tax, general accounting, financial statement accounting, something, because that gives you such a great base knowledge for when you will work on forensic accounting engagements. You have to be able to think outside of the box and be able to review financial statements or business records and be able to look at them and understand what is different about them or what might be slightly off about them so that you can investigate those accounts further, or maybe think like a crook, like Elaine was saying. But you need to be able to know what you're going to try to look for. And if you don't have that basic understanding of financial statements or a good accounting knowledge,
Yes.
I think it just that is just invaluable. And that I definitely started with audit and tax. I think all of us did, and I just think that was that's the way to go, in my opinion.
No, I agree. I actually did not have an audit background. I had one little audit that I did. And so I was kind of, I guess, the abnormal person here, because we seem to do audit. But so for me, it was pretty much forensic accounting and tax. And I found that over the years, I've had to basically do a lot of study on my own to kind of make up for that. So I'm constantly reading and constantly challenging myself. It's one of the reasons why I continued after getting my CPA to get to be a certified valuation analyst credential, and then moved on to get certified in financial forensics. Why? Because I needed a good base. I needed a good, strong understanding of these concepts and the knowledge that these exams would teach me on and kind of challenge me on. So those exams were not just to get letters behind my name, but they were basically to expand my own knowledge base to make me better at what I'm doing now. And that's why I pursued them. I think as a student, the best thing you could possibly do is take every opportunity to learn. When I was here at Fresno State, I took every accounting course except international accounting. And I really did, because I wanted to learn everything. And if I had time, I would have taken international accounting. My first forensic accounting case was on partnership accounting. And guess what? Back then, that was taught in the advanced accounting course here. So I had taken advanced accounting. So my partner sat there. He'd love to put me on the spot. And he's like, so tell me, what do you know about partnership accounting? And I'm like, well, let me tell you. I took the class. And already that set me apart from the other people at the firm that didn't understand that concept or those concepts there. So definitely be willing to learn, and also be inquisitive. Ask questions, who, what, when, where, how, why. We kind of learned that in elementary school, but it's so applicable for what we do here. The who, what, when, where, how, why is just amazing, because you can get so many pieces of information from a lawyer, from a client, from anybody you're dealing with, to basically give yourself another piece of the puzzle.
So I'm one of those, I keep it real. So we learn a lot of book theory in school, and I'm sitting here in my alma mater, and I couldn't have done it. But when you get out in the real world, that's when you learn. And I would say that definitely the CPA is invaluable. You need to get that, because that is a ticket. If you go up for a job against someone who has a CPA and versus not,
Yeah.
the CPA will get the job every single time.
Right.
It's just the things you go through to get that just prove how bad you really, really want it, and how much you've worked to get it. I had someone tell me one time, how can you go and audit payroll if you've never done payroll? So for me, I think it's important to never turn down an opportunity to work on a project, even if you think it's something lower than what you feel like you're capable of doing. If someone hands you a payroll file to do payroll tax reports, they're probably seeing how much you know, because they're going to send you out to audit payroll, And you're going to be able to do it because you know what it's supposed to look like. I think then going further than that, once you get your CPA license and you've got some experience under your belt, if it's something you really want to do, then go get your certified fraud examiner or your certified financial forensic credential. I don't think auditing made me, I think auditing helped me be a good forensic accountant, but having that forensic background makes me a great auditor. And so I would say just never turn down the opportunity to do something, even if it seems kind of menial at the time. There's probably a reason why it's in front of you, and learning it is going to be invaluable later on. So.
Great. Okay, so now I'd like to open it up to questions from our audience and also from our webcast audience as well. And we'll alternate, so we'll start with a question here, and then we'll go to our web audience as well.
Please state your name, school, and your question.
Thank you. My name is Tirza Hale. I am from CSU Monterey Bay, and my question is, would you advise students to go on for further education besides their bachelor's degree if they're interested in forensic accounting? For example, such as a master's degree.
I can personally speak. At my firm, a CPA license holds way more weight for us than a master's degree. I know the requirements are different now, and forgive me because it's been a long time since I sat for the exam. Most of the students now, they're required to have the equivalent of a master's degree. Is that right, to sit for the exam? Is that the 150 hour?
The unit equivalent.
The
Yes.
unit
Is that the
equivalent.
equivalent
So
of a master's?
I believe so. I don't know.
So for my firm
Masters.
personally, we would look weight it higher for someone having a CPA license than a master's degree. Although once you're there, going and getting a master's degree in like taxation or something that you're working in can never hurt. But initially, it doesn't change much for us.
I would agree. Same goes for our firm.
Yeah, me too. You know, there is something to be said, though, for getting an education. I think it depends also where you want to practice, right? Because if you're in Fresno, obviously we're in Fresno now, smaller town, we're saying that the master's doesn't really apply much to our firms. Maybe Bay Area or bigger cities, right? It's another thing that would distinguish you from somebody else. So anytime you can do something that will make yourself look better on paper and also broaden your knowledge base, it's a win-win, I think.
We have a question from one of our webcast viewing parties. Our campus ambassador, Christine Petke, asks, in fraud investigation, is it better to have a CFF or CFE?
I think
Kind of the same.
that seems to be an age-old question because you have a lot of people who have the CFE. Elaine has the CFE. I happen to have the CFF. I don't know that I think that it.
I think it's just the difference between it being the organization who,
I think
who
so.
issued
Yeah.
AICPA does the CFF,
And the
the
CFE
Association of Certified Fraud Examiners, the ACFE does the CFE.
And
But
I
I think it's pretty similar.
I think they're very similar. I think the CFF, before the CFF existed, if you were going to do fraud,
Yes.
you would become
Right.
a CFE. And now there's both credentials available to you. I think either one is perfectly fine.
Yeah, so it all depends on who you want to pay dues to.
That's true.
Yeah.
Yes. Or if you get grandfathered into one, or if you
Yes,
have to
exactly.
take a test.
Yeah, in the
Yeah.
beginning, you were able to grandfather if you
You
were
were.
a CFE, you could
Yes.
grandfather into the CFF very easily. Just
Yes.
take a test and you were in. So I think they're very similar for them to be able to do
Yes.
that process.
I agree.
Very similar.
Any questions in the audience?
Please state your name, school, and your question.
Hi, Cindy Oliphant, Fresno State. My question is, with other people you work with who do similar work, what kind of different backgrounds have you seen that seem to bring something to the table other than lawyer and CPA?
You mean the people that are in our firms, or
Field.
executives, people that came in that worked in government, that kind of people that were police officers, people that did any other kind of work?
At our firm, we have a couple people that were in the FBI. Is that answering your question? Yeah, in our firm, we have a couple people who worked for the FBI. They are CPAs, though. They're CPAs, and then they went and worked for the FBI and then came to work to do forensic accounting for our firm. I'm trying to think of what other... I know we have some people that are not accounting majors necessarily, but most of them are either CPAs or CFEs or have one of the credentials applicable to what we do.
Our next online question is from Gia. She says, I'm an accounting student and graduating this semester. I'm interested in forensic accounting. How would you recommend me to start and succeed in this career?
Well, first of all, congratulations on graduating this soon. My goodness. I would just say, like we said, pursue the CPA license, start studying for that, get that out of the way, especially when everything is still fresh in your mind and you're studying. It's amazing how fast you can lose that material. If I had to take it right now, I probably wouldn't pass. Good thing they can't take it away.
I definitely would.
Keep my CPE up, and they can't take it away.
Right.
So I would say definitely pursue the CPA exam, and then, like Jodi said, go to work for someone who does that kind of work,
Yeah.
because you may find that you love it more than you thought you would, or you may not like it as much as you thought. And so you would hate to go and pursue like a CFE or a CFF credential and then have it not be what you want. So I would say to go to work for someone that does that kind of work and experience it firsthand, and then work along the way.
Yeah, you definitely should have a plan. You know, your plan shouldn't be when you graduate, I'm just going to get a job anywhere. There's a lot of questions to consider, such as firm culture. You know, will I fit into this firm? Will this firm fit with me and where I want to go? And will I learn something from them? Or am I just going to be, you know, a grommet in the big machine? So, you know, think that way. Think long term. You know, what do I want to do? Where do I want to be? What direction do I want to go in? I think that's very important. Pursue the CPA license. You know, when I started, I didn't want to work full time. That was my decision. And so I turned down full-time jobs. I said, I want to focus on my CPA exam. If you'll let me work part-time, I will work for you. And that was my choice. You know, I turned down 2 or 3 jobs before I actually got someone that would do that for me. It all depends on you and your temperament. But to me, the CPA was that important that I was willing to make less money in order to get it done.
It's definitely, and I would second that, and I would say, if at all possible, study and take the CPA exam right after you graduate
Oh, for sure.
from college. I did not do it that way, and it was much more difficult. I took the CPA exam once I had already been married and had children. So I was working full-time, having dinner with my children, and then going to a library at a local college at night and studying for it. It's a much harder way to do it. So if at all possible, take it after you graduate. You're used to studying. You've got all that knowledge with you. It's just, it's a much better plan. Take it from me. Much better plan.
Jodi Rowley from CSU Monterey Bay. Are there any other accreditations that you think that would be good to have, such as the ABV, which is from the American Society of Appraisers, or other valuation certificates?
Well, I guess, so.
Yeah, you're the
I-
valuation guy.
I'll speak to that. So ABV is equivalent to my CVA. I just chose the CVA because I liked how it sounded better. No.
I have never heard that answer.
That's what happens when they give me a mic. You know, no, it was kind of, my mentor had a CVA as well as an ABV. And it was one of those things, either or. One's by the American Institute of Certified Public Accountants, and one's by NACFA, the National Association of Certified Valuators and Analysts. And I just liked NACFA. That was the organization that I kind of felt good about, and I've worked with them ever since, and I've done some work for them on the side. So they're about the same. They're looked at the same in the industry.
Yeah, I would say that.
Yeah.
We have another question from Christine, and she's asking, what advice do you have for a student who wants to go particularly into fraud investigation?
think like a crook. You know, you know what? And I'll be honest. I think there's some people that that aren't cut out for it. You know, they just don't
Very
have.
true.
That is
I
true.
call it that gut
Yeah.
instinct. You know, and you just, it's like you walk into somewhere and you just know that something isn't right, and you may not be able to know what it is right that second, but you know that there's something there and you will find it. I think you've just got to have that instinct, and you've got to want it, and you've got to want to look for it, and you've got to want to do it, you know. And I just, not everyone has it. They're great auditors. They're great auditors, and they can go and audit everything, but they may not be a good fraud person.
I would agree with that. I think you have to have a very analytical mind. You have to be able to think outside the box. You have to be able to look at something and realize it may be different, but is that wrong? Is that right? I would agree with what Elaine says. Auditing is very, in some respects, task-oriented. You get a
Right.
section, you go by the audit program, you're looking at something, you're ticking and tying it, and that's what you're going to do. When you're looking at a fraud investigation, you start with that and you're looking at the financial statements or the financial documents, but you have to be able to think, you have to be able to find the next step. If something doesn't seem quite right, you have to be able to think about it and maybe think like a crook, I don't know, and just figure out what more can we do to investigate this. There's not one way to approach anything, which is what I was kind of speaking of earlier. If you're doing an audit, you have an audit program. This is how we're going to look at it. We're going to go through the steps. There are no steps in a fraud investigation. You just are winging it, so to speak, and you have to be able to think on more of a global level rather than just being very task-oriented. We've had people who've interned for my firm and who have come to work for us, and it just doesn't work out. They're great accountants, or they could do a great audit, but they just don't have that mindset to think that way, and you really need to have it.
Yeah, it really does take a specific type of person to succeed in this field. And that's not in any, boasting about us in any way. As you can all tell, we're lively people. We just have this character about us because we're either quick-witted or quick on our feet, or we're used to being flexible and can look at things in many different ways, right, at the same time. Because we're analyzing and we're looking at things, and we're kind of looking at something that someone would look at one way, and we want to turn it and figure out what's on the other side of that. And we look at it in all different angles because we're trying to not just understand what it is, but understand what it could be and what it might represent. So definitely a deeper level of thought that goes into this. I actually have a ball that I bounce in my office all the time whenever I really need to think about something. And I just play with my ball. Anyway. Helps me think.
Okay. It's like Tom Cruise in his bat.
There you go.
There you go. There you go.
Please state your name, school, and question.
Hello, my name is Naris, and I go to Fresno State. My question is, would it be beneficial to minor in a certain area? So as I was reading about forensic accounting, and a lot of websites said that it would be beneficial to minor in criminology or something along those lines, because I'm interested in fraud investigations and things like that. So my question is, would minoring help gain more experience or things like that?
It probably wouldn't help gain the experience, but like Ray was saying, the knowledge, the education and the knowledge, I don't think could go wrong with that. Getting a minor in criminology, it can only help you.
I know I've spent a lot of time with psychology. I love psychology, so a lot of the textbooks that I've read and novels that I've read outside of school have all revolved around psychology, written by FBI agents going into fraud investigations, and what they look for, body language and things like that, to kind of give you a tell on what's going on. And so that type of stuff, you really can't go wrong with, because you're just adding another tool to your bag.
Right.
Our next question is from Kara. Is working in forensic accounting more demanding of your time than other areas of accounting?
Depends on the case I'm working on.
Yeah.
There are definitely weeks I've put in millions of hours, that you're there till the wee hours of the night, especially if we're preparing for trial and you're getting ready to assist the attorneys with the trial or getting ready for deposition or testimony. You could put in thousands and thousands and thousands of hours. But that being said, Elaine, who's just finished tax season, is putting in thousands and thousands of hours. So if I'm not working on a case that's getting ready for trial, it might be a regular 8 to 5 workday for a week or two, which is nice.
Yeah, every
So,
case is different.
yeah.
And the demands are different. The demands are just different for every single case. It all depends on what I need to do and what I need to accomplish and when I need to get it done by. You know, sometimes I'm working later, and I'll usually do things at home. Or other times, it's just a normal 8 to 5 day. Or sometimes I'll go in extra early to kind of beat everybody in the office. That way I can have some quiet time.
To bounce your ball?
To bounce my ball off the wall, yeah, if I really need to think. Without disturbing people. You know, so it all depends on the engagement. So sometimes it's long. It's just like accounting in general, though. I mean, you know, we don't go into this field thinking we're only going to work 8 to 5 every single day of our lives. That doesn't come with the field. If you think that, I'm sorry. That is not going to happen.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that will not happen. And when you're working for the courts a lot of times, which we do, you are subject to their deadlines.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, I've canceled vacations. I've missed a ton of my kids' sporting events. It is definitely what happens because the courts have hard and fast deadlines. The judges are not going to say, oh, Mrs. Rowley, you have to go to a soccer game today? No problem. You know, I mean, I have missed a lot of stuff. But that is the reality of it. That is what happens. So.
Well, and unfortunately, like I said, you never know when these cases are going to drop
Yeah.
in your lap.
Exactly.
So you could
Right.
be in the middle of a different huge project at work, totally something different, and then this comes along, and now this is a priority as well. So depending on when it comes along can be a factor in the hours that you have to put in and how demanding it becomes. So.
My name is Janice Chan. I'm a student here at Fresno State as well. Going off the previous question then, how do you balance your work life and your personal life then? Do you find it easy, hard, and do you usually flex out of the home then, if that's the case? Do you find it easier to flex out of the home because you like bring work home and stuff like that?
Work-life balance. I think that.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's
Do you
an
have
all-time-
that?
Well, that's the all-time question of the world. You know, actually, I think it's we're working towards more of that now. I think as
Yeah.
women become more predominant in the firms, like, you know, my firm used to be predominantly male partners. That has shifted now to where there's more female partners than male partners. I personally, I have a 13 and an 11-year-old. I'm now a single mom, so I have really good support at home, good babysitters and you know, family involvement that help me do what I do. I don't think I could do it without that. Definitely couldn't do it. But I think, you know, you just have to kind of pick what's important to you and focus on that. There, like he said, I will go in super early in the morning because my children are asleep and I'm not missing that time, just to get home to be able to have dinner with them. So those are the things that I choose to do. And I try, if at all possible, not to work on Sundays because that's my time with my family. So if I have to work way more hours during the week to accomplish that, then that's what I do. So I think, but my firm is very family oriented, and I've had both my children while working there. So our motto is, if you miss an important event that you're having, it's because you chose not to go. Because they always allow us to make up our time, and you know, we've got several people to cover if we're not there. So I don't really feel like I've ever missed a whole lot. But I've also not had the courts to tell me that I had to be there.
Right,
And
that's only the real, that's
Right,
the real
right,
time
right,
I've
right.
missed things. I mean, my firm is family
Right.
oriented as well,
Right.
and I agree with Elaine. You can flex your hours. I've worked weekends if I wanted to do something with the kids during the week, or like Ray said, I'll take stuff home at night, especially if I'm reading a deposition transcript or something that I do not have to be in the office for. I'll take it home and do that after dinner when my kids are, you know, in their rooms and I've already spent time with them. So I agree. I think it's definitely becoming more flexible. You just have to find what works for you. You work earlier, you work later, I mean, whatever works. And I think most firms are pretty amenable to that these days, which is great.
Absolutely.
No, it's an interesting question, work-life balance, to ask an accountant, because it's always going to be a struggle, okay? Always. Because there will always be another project, there will always be a deadline, there will always be something that will try to push you to continue to work more and more and more and more. It's a very demanding field, right? Especially as you start getting more time with clients. Clients do not understand that you sleep. I kid you not, that actually wasn't a joke. I will get emails at 11 p.m. at night from clients, right? And then at 4 a.m., why didn't you respond to my email yet?
Sleep.
I'm like, I'm sorry, I was sleeping. I tend to do this every night.
Yeah.
At least for 3 hours a night.
Yes,
Right,
yeah.
exactly.
You know, and then heaven forbid you should be up and you answer an email because it's a quick question, because then you got into this whole dialogue, right?
Yes.
It's insane.
Yeah.
So it can be all-consuming, right? You have to have boundaries. You have to have a strong foundation of who you are and know where your boundaries are, know what you're okay with and what you're not okay with. You know, the beautiful thing about being a professional is you can always make up your time. I mean, that's how my firm is.
Yeah.
Apparently, that's how your firms are. My firm is all digital. Everything we have is in the cloud. So I was issued a laptop. I am able to access all my company files, all my client files, everything that I possibly need from home. So I can do anything from home.
Next question is from, sorry, I'm going to butcher your name, Katsiarna. She'd like to know how many people are in your firms, and have you ever considered going solo?
Have I considered going solo? No. I really enjoy working for a firm because it's a lot more collaborative of an experience, and there's always someone in my firm. We have partners that specialize in all different things. Like I may work on economic damages and fraud. We have other people who work on construction defect cases. A lot of partners work on audit failure cases. So there's always somebody I can learn something from or work on a different type of case. We have, like I said, an office here in Fresno, which is very small, an office in Los Angeles, an office in Chico, Santa Rosa, and San Francisco. And I think total our litigation department is about, gosh, don't quote me on this, about 50 or 60 people.
Wow. We have about 7 or 8. One lady is actually located in Texas. And so we meet with her every Monday. She Skypes in. And so, again, since our firm is digital, everything she needs is just right there for her. And so she continues to see clients. She continues to talk with them on the phone, continues to handle their corporate accounts. And it works very well for us. What was the rest of the question?
Did you ever consider going solo?
Oh, thank you. Yes.
You're welcome.
Oh, boy. You know, the tough thing about that is when you work with a firm, especially a firm with really talented people, you're really spoiled by working with really talented people.
That's true.
You know?
That's true, yeah.
I work with this wonderful woman who lives and breathes tax law. And anytime I have a question, I feel confident in saying, hey, can you please explain this to me? Because I just don't have the depth of knowledge needed to understand this concept. And she will sit down with me and explain it to me. And it's great because I could pull from those people. Someone else in audit, you know, hey, I'm thinking this. Does this make sense? And it's great to have that ability to kind of throw ideas off your peers, which is really not there when you go solo. So it makes it harder.
So we just recently actually just acquired some, on January 1st, acquired a firm in Visalia that came with a Lindsay office and then another firm in Lemoore. So our firm has actually gotten bigger in the last 3 months. So it was interesting. I'd never gone through anything like that with a firm before. So probably now we probably have well over 100 employees now. So it's different, learning curve there, but fun. And as far as going solo, well, if we weren't being taped, no. I'm like the firm right now, you know, like Tunkers, I can't go anywhere. No, you know what? Every time I get that, every time I get that little inkling about, oh, you know, I'd like to go move to the coast and do something. It's like, then I get the same situation where I get a client that calls up and says, you know what, I want to do a 1031 exchange and da-da-da-da, and it's like, okay, this is going to require a lot of tax research, and that's not my thing, so I go to the partner 2 doors down and who loves doing tax research and plop it on his desk and say, have at it. And 2 days later, he gives me the answers I need. So in that instance, I think it would be a detriment to me to go by myself and solo. And as a partner, I am an owner, so I think that gives me a lot of flexibility. It's kind of like being solo, except I get, 12 brains are better than one all the time.
Right.
So
That's true.
I would say for now, I'm going to stay where I'm at.
I will say that I've spoken to a couple of solo practitioners in forensics, and what they end up doing if they have questions is they really tap into CalCPA, other CalCPA members that work in tax or have some kind of area of specialization. So they kind of use that professional community to really bounce ideas off or ask questions. So that's available as well. But it's nice to be able to walk down, or just
Absolutely.
call someone in your own firm. You're like, they're not like, who the heck are you? So.
But I agree. Being a member of CalCPA has been invaluable, especially if you join the individual sections. Like I'm a member of the forensic section, and I go to the meetings, and I have met a ton of people who do the same work that we do, and I feel comfortable calling any one of them to ask about a particular case or some type of case law. If I can't find the answer within my own firm, I will call any of these people that I have met through CalCPA. It is a great resource.
We all met through CalCPA.
I met Jodi through CalCPA.
Yeah, we
being
were on the boards.
in the Fresno chapter together. And I just asked her earlier when we were out in the lobby, I said, I need a work paper for this kind of case. Do you have that? And she said, I don't do that kind of work, but then gave me the name of someone who does that she knows. So I would agree. And that's another thing. When you ask about what you should do, join CalCPA.
Definitely.
I mean, it's
Yeah.
free.
Absolutely.
And the benefits you'll get from it, they will last you forever.
For a lifetime.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, for sure.
Agreed. And they did not pay us to say that.
Yes. They did not.
take it that's
You're
good
not
going after
endorsed.
I've got a question
You're not
here.
endorsing.
Aside from the work-life balance and the time, and it doesn't sound like there's such thing as a part-time accountant, which I've heard everybody say, and you're confirming, what challenge could each of you give an example of in your work, aside from those types of logistic things? A case that had a particular challenge or a situation that you found particularly challenging?
I would say for me personally, I don't know that I could speak to a particular case that's challenging. The challenging thing for me is the testimony piece of it. For me, that's somewhat difficult. I really enjoy doing the work papers and doing the investigation and finding, really digging deep in the case and writing a report about the case, and that kind of stuff is what I like. Having to actually go and testify and try to explain things in a courtroom is tough. I've only done it 3 times, and each time was pretty difficult for me. That's just for me personally, having to sit and do that. But that's my challenge that I'm trying to work through.
Well, let's see. I think my biggest weakness, which is really kind of what we're talking about here, is, and this is something that I've been working on, is my ability to review my own work. Sometimes I get really in this go, produce, assumption, and I'm going and I'm making great strides in what I'm doing, but darn it, I just missed a little period somewhere, or I missed a comma somewhere, or I misspelled someone's name. And so for me, that's the hardest part for me. Every case is involving, and every case is challenging in that it's a new set of, well, specifically in valuation, right? The first question that I ask whenever I do a valuation engagement is, why am I valuing your company? Because if I'm valuing for IRS, I'm using IRS standards of valuation. If I'm valuing for SBA, I'm using the SBA standards of valuation. If I'm valuing for a merger and acquisition deal, I'm using a completely different standard of valuation. And what I do and the steps that I take and the procedures that I use all change. Same thing, if I'm doing a divorce, completely different standard. Now I'm using California standard evaluation. So that's always the challenge. But I think for me, my biggest struggle is always remembering to slow down and look at my stuff at the end and make sure that I've basically reviewed it myself and I'm happy with it and I would be acceptable with this going to court.
So I was a 911 dispatcher when I put myself through college, so I thought I could handle stress pretty well. That's nothing compared to writing your report and having in your mind thinking it's the best thing ever, and then having a district attorney or someone sit down and rip it to shreds.
Yeah.
And you're thinking,
Yeah,
man,
that's
why
fun.
It's
didn't
painful.
I ask myself that question before they just did?
Yeah.
So it's a pretty painful process to go through. So it's a learning process. You won't do it again, but.
Next question is from Marim. I'm a newly licensed CPA and happy with my current position in audit, but interested in forensic accounting. I would like to know if I work in a company that doesn't do forensic accounting, how feasible is it to do this part-time?
I would say part-time would be difficult.
that would be rough.
Just
Yeah.
because the cases come so sporadically anyway. I feel like sometimes I don't even keep up on enough skills sometimes to do certain cases. And I would say part-time would be rough. I just don't know if you could keep up with everything that you would need to do it part-time unless you took a lot of
Right.
education, a lot of classes, but some of this is just so hands-on, you would want to have yourself in it all the time.
I would agree.
Yeah, it's really hard. I mean, we've already kind of addressed this. You know, a part-time accountant really doesn't exist. I think what somebody said here, and is it possible? Well, it would depend on if your firm would like to encourage you to go that direction, right? So I really don't know the best way to answer that. I guess it would depend on your firm, whether or not they want you to dabble in that. I know when I was starting off, I went to interview for a large firm, and everything was going great, and they had told me that I had the job, and I was really happy, and I'm sitting before these 3 people, and then I made this dumb mistake because I was hired for audit, and I said, how would you feel if I pursued other licenses, and if I tried to learn other skill sets, like forensics? And they looked at me, and they kind of went silent and looked at each other. Well, you're an auditor. Why would you want to do that? And that was pretty much the end of my interview time. So, you know, again, it depends on your firm.
Jodi Hale from CSU Monterey Bay. I was wondering if you could tell us about the first time or the most challenging time that you were an expert witness.
I'll let Jodi handle because I went to court, but I didn't even go on the stand. She pleaded out before, right there in the courtroom.
In the courtroom,
In
that's
the
exciting.
That's nice.
That was nice.
She just
Well,
decided to plead out.
like I said, the testifying part is kind of rough for me, just because I just don't naturally want to sit up and pretend to be the expert on anything. It's just an uncomfortable position for me to be in. I would much rather be in the trenches doing the work. But I testified once before jury and once before just a judge, just a bench trial. Luckily, they were pretty simple cases, and so I was only on the stand for a couple of hours. But the interesting thing, I think, in the jury trial is the attorney on the other side, I guess he felt like he was really rough on me because he was asking me all these specific questions of accounting, and he wanted to know a financial calculation right there. And I said, well, I can't do that in my head, So he got out actually like one of those flip boards and was writing things on it and wanted me to, I think he gave me a calculator and I was supposed to calculate something. So it was a little uncomfortable because you're right on the spot. But the interesting thing was after it was over, he comes out to me and I'm standing at the elevator getting ready to leave the courthouse. And this is the opposing attorney, not the one I was working for. And he says, gosh, I'm really sorry I was so rough on you. And I was like, that's fine. I'm not personally attached to this case. I'm a CPA, I'm an accountant. To me, these were numbers. I'm looking at numbers, and I'm giving you my response on what the numbers said. And he said, yeah, I guess that's true. Garbage in, garbage out. That was the best you could do. I'm like, wow.
Wow.
Okay. Because he was on the other side. They lost. Our side won. So he was frustrated with what I had to say. Yeah, sour grapes, exactly. But, I mean, in some respect, he's right. I mean, I can only work with what I have, with the numbers that I'm given. And we analyze them and see what they say, and that's what you have.
I've never testified myself, so I prepared stuff for the expert witness that testified. And the way he described it to me was, it's kind of like middle school or elementary school, where you have this kid who's a jerk to you, and they're always trying to make you feel like or say something dumb, or make you look like you're dumb, or make you act dumb. That's kind of what it's like to be on trial.
It's rough.
Well, and actually that you say that, because the person I met with that shredded my paper, we met at the courthouse to go over, and that's the case that is finally going to trial on Monday. And you know, in all fairness, it depends on what district attorney and and if they really want to prosecute the case. A lot of times in fraud cases, it's very sad, because unless it's over a certain dollar amount, they really won't give it the time of day, and they do not want to take up the court's time and the police officer's time and the investigator's time for a case that's only $40,000. Now, I say only 40, that's a lot of money, and there's a lot of emotional attachment to that money as well. However, in most times, unless it's over $250,000, they won't even do jail time in the state of California. It just won't happen. So for me, it's very difficult when you work really hard on a case and you know that you've got a good case and they don't want to take it to court. And so that is a challenge. That's very, very hard for me. Yeah.
And I would say that, you know, accounting is not necessarily the sexiest thing to get up and talk about in front of a jury. So you start talking about numbers and their eyes are glazing over. I mean, nobody really cares that you've analyzed 5 years of financial statements and that, you know, office supplies was 1 year 20% of gross revenue, the next it dipped to 5%. I might find that very interesting, but the jury does not care. So trying to get that across in a way that they can understand and even pay attention to and make that relevant to your case, I think is challenging as well. So, any more questions in the audience? Back to, you guys are inciting a lot of curious people, so we got a lot of questions for you. But but I know we're coming towards the end of the program, so we'll try and wrap up with a few more. Let's see. This is from Denise. You mentioned that as a CPA, you will always have a job. Is the area of forensic accounting a growing field and a secure job option? What changes or trends have you observed during your forensic accounting career?
I would say absolutely it is. And just from when I got my CFE and started doing it, I mean, it's leaps and bounds. Yes. And if this is all, I mean, I choose to still do tax and audit just because of where I am in my firm. But I definitely think if I had someone to take over that kind of work for me eventually, I could make a full-time practice out of forensic accounting just by going out and networking and getting my name out there even more. The person I mentioned earlier that did it when she was a coworker of mine and got me interested in it, she moved up to Washington and is very successful now. This is all she does, and she publishes and she speaks, and you know, so definitely it can flourish into something. Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, here's a question from one of our campus ambassadors, John. How many years of accounting experience with financial statements, auditing, and tax is recommended or required before working as a forensic accountant?
I'm not aware of any there's no set requirements. I think it's all just an individual thing. I think we all agree that we recommend getting some experience in those fields of financial accounting or audit, maybe even tax, before you do forensic accounting. I know in our firm, we usually like to hire people who have prior experience. We don't typically hire anyone who's just graduated right out of school because we want them to have that background and have some sort of work experience in other fields prior to doing this. But I don't have a set number.
Yeah, I don't think so.
Yeah.
So we still have some questions, but we're nearing the end of the program. So I want to take this time to thank you for coming and giving us this wealth of knowledge. It's been wonderful to listen to your stories and hear your journey. So we appreciate the time that you've taken to come out here.
Our pleasure.
Yes.
And I'll
Our pleasure.
invite Dr. Lin back up for any closing remarks that you may have.
I just want to say I have to say I've learned a lot tonight.
Okay, so this concludes our program for the evening. This is going to be recorded and uploaded to YouTube, so this is going to be available for playback on CalCPA's YouTube channel. So invite those of you who want to kind of rewatch it for some specific answers, or if you have some classmates that might benefit from this, please go ahead and let them know that this will be on YouTube, and we'll send out an email to those who signed up for today, so you'll know when that link is up. Usually in about a week and a half. Usually that's the turnaround time. But again, I want to again plug CalCPA student membership. It's available to you for free, so please take advantage of that. Sign up. Again, the website is calcpa.org/join free. So. It's a resource that's available for students. We want to be, again, a partner in your career journey to become a CPA and hopefully a future forensic accountant, though. So thank you so much, panelists, for your time. And thank you so much for being here. And maybe, I don't know if you want to stick around for a couple minutes for questions from individual students. So then I'll have to snag you guys and Dr. Lin and our Impact ambassadors for a photo shoot after this. So we can take a quick photo. And again, thank you so much for attending tonight, and we'll see you next time.